Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you for ending on a positive note. And the Academy has its work cut out for the next few decades. By the way, 2024 Research Centre, you might like to be informed of this. Nice poster, don't you think? Nice poster, and it will be dealing with international institutions and international crises. Climate crisis will very certainly be on the agenda. So we'll be looking at that, and we will continue to work on these issues, as you can see. And the Academy will continue to try and bring its contribution to the collective effort to face this global challenge. So thank you very much. Time has come for some conclusions. The centenary of the Academy, concluding this particular centenary. And who better to do that than the actual president of the curatorium of the Centenary Academy? Incidentally, I think that this individual is a figure of history for several reasons. First of all, he was the president of the curatorium at the time of the centenary, and as far as I know, in the history of the Academy, he's the only one to have been both Secretary General and President. I won't call you to the podium as Secretary General, although I do think that in your mindset you are still very much a Secretary General. But I will call you up not in that capacity, but as President. It's been an honour to be under your presidency all this time. Sometimes I say that this whole period, as far as I'm concerned, has been a moment to find a friend. And friendship has no value, as you know. Priceless. I'm very, very grateful to Jacqueline Peel. Very grateful to her. Thank you so much for finding the right words. I've been looking for those words for quite some time. And I was thinking to myself, this colloquium, in a way, it was hazardous to end with this particular topic because actually people will leave this auditorium feeling desperately sad. And it will be my job to try and sort of cheer them up a little bit, I thought to myself. But actually, Jacqueline Peel found just the right words. I don't need to do it anymore. Thank you so much. You have such talent, such wonderful way of expressing things. So yes, things are clear. We're going to forge ahead. We're going toward the future. And thank you very much for making that point. I think it's been a wonderful colloquium. That's my opinion. I think it's the general opinion. It's what I've been told by various people. And in fact, I've already received some emails from people who are quite far away from this auditorium, but who've been following the whole colloquium on the internet. Brazil, just to give you one specific example. I just received an email from Brazil, from an alumnus from Brazil, who was telling me that he's been following this work very closely and was full of admiration for what we're doing. So the colloquium, I think, was very much up to the task. It met our objectives for this centenary. And I think it also gives us impetus for the future and those who will succeed us. I mean, 100 years ahead, I think we will need to do a lot of work, and we won't necessarily be the ones doing that work over the next 100 years, but I think we can perfectly well hand over the flame, the baton, to the next generation who will take this further. So I referred to Jacqueline Peel a moment ago. As you can tell, you've been a source of inspiration to me, madam. You talked about the blender earlier on, and I wanted to talk about a shaker, a blender, as opposed to a shaker. I think we're quite close in what we're thinking of here. To try to come up with a conclusion, it's a bit like taking a shaker. You put some ice at the bottom and then you pour some ingredients on top of that. You're very careful about the dosage of the ingredients. Then you shake your shaker, and then maybe you put a little bit of zest of lemon in that, and then you start shaking it and you serve it. You serve your shaker and you raise a toast, you raise a glass, and everybody's happy as a result. So I thought, in a way, what I've got to do here is use a shaker in a way. But the problem is that when you're asked to make some conclusions to an event, there are certain constraints, if you like. You have to, carefully mention all the different topics that have been addressed, all the interventions, all the speeches. Make sure that you don't forget anyone or anything. Make sure that you don't actually repeat the same thing twice. You might upset someone, or you might think, you might speak a little bit longer on one person than another, then you might upset someone else. Anyway, 50 speakers, 13 themes, 30 odd questions addressed during this colloquium. It's now Friday night. I mean, do the maths quickly for yourselves. If I put all of this into my shaker, I'm putting it into my shaker, I'm giving it a shake, and I'm going to serve it up. Well, if I start doing that, quite honestly, we'll still be here at 7:30, possibly 8 p.m. By the time it comes to toasting the event, it'll be very late indeed. I don't think that is our intention. I don't think that is what we want to do. Now, you could, of course, interpret this as a way out for me, an escape clause for me. But no, that is not what this is about. All I wish to do is thank you. I would like to say just these few words. We have addressed two global themes, I would say, the public interest and humanization of international law. I think that they were, if you like, the premise for all of our thinking, the starting point for everything that we addressed during this colloquium. And incidentally, we also found that some of these concepts don't mean the same thing in different areas. Public international law, private international law, domestic law, sometimes the meaning is slightly different. And all of these laws, all of these laws come into play in different ways, from different angles, in the different topics that we addressed during the course of these few days. And we also looked at legal orders. We found that sometimes they were complementary to one another, sometimes they were coordinated, and you had to be quite clear as to the terminology that you use. So careful in terms of the use of these words. And I think that once again, we were able to realize how important it is to know whereof you speak and to highlight the essential nature of terminology. And from that point of view, I would say that all the panelists, the Secretary General made that point earlier on, very eminent personalities. I mean, that's one of the great advantages of this academy. We can afford that little luxury to invite the very best people to these events. Not everybody can do that. We're very, very lucky. We have the creme de la creme. We have the absolute top people in these different disciplines. And I think that reflects the quality of what we do here, of course. And all of that then means that the success of the Academy just grows and grows. It is a virtuous circle, and I think it's a very fortunate thing. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say this. I'm not being, flattering ourselves by saying this. I think it's actually true. Anyway, what I found was that questions were raised, and then other questions cropped up as a consequence. It was a bit like a Russian doll. The matryoshki. You open one doll, you find another one inside it, and another one inside it, and so on and so forth. It was a bit like that, and I think that is part of the wealth, the richness of our work. And sometimes it was actually quite amusing, at least intellectually speaking. It was very stimulating to conduct these exercises. So we had meeting points, we came together, and of course at the nexus we always found, of course, the state. The state is always very much there with international law as a very important instrument, a tool that we use. We also met its competitors, finance, markets, other states, of course, other than your own, and sometimes other states that are dominant states, actually. We also met with states, a state that might be controlling, perhaps overly so, encroaching, sometimes also a state that is circumvented, for instance, in the world of finance or in the area of arbitration. Sometimes the state is bypassed. So, as a result, all of that might leave you with an impression of disorder, maybe disorder. Personally, though, I didn't think there was any disorder. I listened to you carefully, and what I experienced was a kind of movement, a world in motion, and that is very much the world we live in, a world in motion, a world in transformation, a world in change, in flux. And the rules that we have are often challenged. Sometimes they're even taken to court, so to speak. I mean, one of the most important fundamental rules currently being taken to court. But I'm convinced that whenever there's a crisis, you actually stand to gain from it ultimately, because ultimately the human being will prevail. Now, the climate crisis is, of course, worrying from that point of view, because we're not sure. We're not sure. We're really, really not sure. And I do my best to try to be optimistic, very much like the Secretary General. But I do worry. I worry for my children. I worry about my grandchildren. I worry for all of us, really. And I invest an awful lot of hope in the idea that we're leaving anthropomorphism, that we're leaving that behind, and that we're learning to share. And hopefully learning to share is what will save us, what will help us. I very much hope that we will have rules to help us do that. I think the big problem really is that this is an area where those who are decision makers today will not be standing for re-election when these measures actually take effect. So you need a lot of political courage to take a rule forward, to have it adopted, when ultimately you're actually not going to derive any benefit from that rule. You're not doing it for yourself. You're actually doing it for the next generations, your successors. If there is a benefit to be gained, they will be the ones gaining it, not you. It takes courage. And that is a big stumbling block, of course. And it was good, in a way, to have finished on this particular topic, because ultimately I think they have a lot to do with our future. And I think it was quite apposite for us to use that as our concluding topic. Essentially, I come back to my argument, a crisis can be profitable. We've seen that in history. In history, we've gone through crises, and ultimately, after the crises, we've seen the birth of systems. I mean, some of them are under threat right now. I mean, for instance, Second World War led to the United Nations. The United Nations have been extremely beneficial to us. Where would we be without the United Nations, frankly? But in United Nations in crisis today, deemed inoperational or inefficient. I hope that there will be transformation, that there will be reform. That is necessary when you find yourself in a moment of crisis. Mr. Boutros-Ghali, I had, in fact, the great honor to step into his shoes as president of the curatorium here. He often used to say, for any kind of change at the United Nations, you need a third war. Oh, well, it was an individual whom I admired very much indeed. His intelligence was second to none. I hope that this time, in saying that, he got it wrong. I hope it won't require a war. I don't know what he's thinking from up there, looking down. I don't know what he's thinking of current affairs, current events right now. But I hope that his pessimism was misplaced. I hope he was wrong in thinking that. I mean, these are things that he said. These are things that he said very much towards the end of his life, so perhaps hence the doom. Anyway, I remain optimistic. I have confidence in our capacity to change. And I truly believe that nothing is worse than just habits, falling into habits. Nothing is worse than doing nothing, inertia. And nothing's worse than habits because you just get used to your habits. You get stuck in a rut and then you drop your guard and then you die. So surely that's not what we want. I'm convinced that's not what we want. And as a lawyer, as an international lawyer, I am absolutely convinced that we will be up to the task. We will face this. We will come up with the right rules. A lot of things have been said. Sometimes, as a little aside, as a little injection into the debate, that's at least the way I understood it. Obligations, treaties, a body, etc., quite obliquely referred to. There's a very rich palette here, a lot of choices open to us. What we need to do now is find the right colours, pick the right colours and press on the right buttons. And I think here we can trust our intelligence going forward. So, by way of concluding remarks, I mean, usually when you're concluding an event, there's a tradition, and there's also a pleasure, in fact. I mean, you thank people. That's also part of a concluding speech. So I would like to thank very much, all those who have come to attend this colloquium. I've rarely seen, in fact, I don't think I've ever seen a colloquium that was so well attended. And, even for the very last session on a Friday afternoon, so many of you still here. I wish to thank you most warmly indeed for being here. Thank you also for trusting the Academy with this. Some of you have come from very far away. I'm looking here at my old friend, may I say that? Peter Truboff, thank you so much for being here. You came all the way from the USA. Others have also come from very far away. Australia. Did anybody come from New Zealand? Maybe not, but New Zealand really would have been the next stage, if you like. So after Australia, another hop, skip and a jump, and that's New Zealand. But anyway, thank you so much. Thank you all for coming, and I really am very grateful to you. I thank all those who spoke, all those who participated, all those who exchanged, including during the breaks, and also the dinners, of course, sumptuous. A feast, Secretary General. I have to say, you've been very, 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 very generous in your hospitality, and everything was so excellent. And if a Frenchman says that the food was excellent, I can tell you that means that the dishes were really, really of the highest caliber. So thank you so much. Top notch. Thank you. And thank you for organizing it all so very well indeed. I would also take this opportunity to give thanks, and I did this at the beginning of the colloquium and the whole celebratory event. I did already thank the Secretary General, and I thanked Judge Tomke, of course, and I would like to once again thank them on this occasion. I would also like to give thanks to Monique Lieberman. I don't know if she's here, but she used to be the deputy of the Secretary General until she went over to join the International Court of Justice, where Monique is now in charge of communication and information. She is the first secretary to the court. It's a wonderful promotion, a great loss to us, of course, a great loss to us, but a great promotion for her, for Monique. And, with the Secretary General, when it came to the first throes of preparation for this event, she really played a very important role. And then, of course, an extraordinary secretariat took over. I have to say, at the end of my mandate, at the end of my term, I'm not giving anything up, just coming to the end. I came to the end of my term as Secretary General. My only regret was that I, didn't have a team at my disposal, this team, and I would like to thank them. Anna Vassilieva, who has been leading this team and who has worked so hard to organize this colloquium. Claire Bustings, Vanina Guenier, Marina Ionesco, Gertie Burkerk, who has also provided a lot of support. And again, from the other way around, if you like, coming from the court and coming here. In a way, retiring from the court and becoming available to help us out. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for helping us with all the details of everything that needs to be sorted out for an event like this. Mirula Oman, of course, I'd like to thank. Sabine Amiel, I would like to thank, who's come from Paris and who coordinated things together with the Secretariat here in The Hague. Thank you to her. Thank you also to the volunteers, Tamara Veik, Tatiana Pignat-Blanco, and Baptiste Burrier. I do apologize if I got some of those names mispronounced. I do apologize. I'm not terribly good, I have to say, when it comes to pronouncing names correctly. I tend to read quite quickly, so I do my best. Please don't hold it against me. Please, I beg your indulgence and forbearance. Thank you also to the interpreters, says Professor Daudet. Thank you very much for your work, as always, with the Academy. Thank you to all, says Jean-Pierre Touvenat. Thank you very much.